Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to my show, Emerge. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Lottie, and I actually met Lottie because I was in a class about breathwork, and I've been so interested in breathwork myself because from my anxiety journey and all of that, of course, and the stress, I noticed that our breath changes so much. So from this very shallow, and by being shallow actually that activates our parasympathetic and we get more stressed, we get more anxious, and we get in this loop of thoughts. And that's what I've been kind of researching a lot about breath work. And I found this class in Barcelona and it was amazing. I'll tell you more about my experience, but I want Lottie to start introducing herself and tell us what you do. Thank you for being here, Lottie.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And it's just wonderful. I'm so glad you came to the workshop and that I got to meet you. So for all of you listening, I'm an IBT practitioner, which is integral breath therapy. And I work with the breath to support people in releasing their trauma, in moving through loss and grief, and any sensation of feeling stuck or blocked in any way.
That's amazing because there are different types of breath work, right? That you said, you mentioned before in the class. So this type that you use is very specific, like you said, for trauma release and all of these. But there are different types. Can you explain us more about the different types of breath work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. There are so many different types out there. And the breath, as you've already mentioned, is fundamental. It's like the one thing that is with us from the moment we're born until the moment we die. The moment we're born, we take our first inhale. The moment we die, we take our last exhale. And it's one of those things that we all have and we all breathe, but most of us don't really know how to optimize it to its full potential. And also, the effects that breathing correctly can have. And so you might have heard of different types of breath work out there, like in the yogic world, there's a tradition of breathing with pranayama and with Kundalini breath. Kundalini activation is very popular at the moment. And then you also, there's big names out there like Wim Hof and holotropic breathing, which was very popular back in the 70s. And they all have their purposes. Yeah, they're all fantastic and they all do different things. And what I do in my practice is focus on the trauma side of things and on supporting people in a therapeutic way. So the facilitator is accompanying their client on their journey, but also there with like a huge bag of tools in order to be able to facilitate and to guide and to pull out what's inside and what's ready to come up.
Yeah, because everyone is different. I was at your workshop and I noticed I was not expecting something different, just breathing and all of that and releasing, but I had some fun experience that I just started to feel more energy through my body and on my hips. For some reason, when I was doing the breath work, my hips just like felt like an energy rush in my hips. And I'm still looking into that, because everyone is different, like I said. So everyone, the Kundalini, actually, I had a whole interview with somebody who's an expert in Kundalini because I've been following that journey so much. I think that's extremely interesting, but I didn't know there was like a type of breath with the Kundalini. So that's new to me. So that's amazing. And how did you get into this breath work yourself, for example?
Thanks for asking. Yeah. So I started in the healing arts when I was in my early 20s. And, I started out kind of reading some books, going to yoga. I became a yoga practitioner. I'm an artist by my studies, by my background. So I've always been really interested in psychology. So then I went into art therapy, but it wasn't until I had my own really, really heart-wrenching grief experiences that I realized that I needed support in handling these overwhelming emotions that I'd not had experience of before, and nothing that I already knew was doing the job. Like nothing was supporting me in the way that I needed. And I just had this instinct, had this inner knowing that I needed to get into the body. And I also have one of those friends, you know, those friends that turn up in the right moment and they're wise and you listen to what they say because you know what they have to say is valuable. And she came at the right moment, and she had done some breath sessions with me before. And she had trained with Carol Latman, whose method is what I do. And she said, it's, first of all, she told me it's okay to cry because I just lost my mom and I was trying to still smile and act normally and paint,
Yes, I know.
paint
Yeah,
this face of everything's okay, but I couldn't. And I was thinking, oh, something's wrong with me, because so many people don't show their grief. So I didn't feel like I had that many reference point of
that's a
like,
problem, that people try to hide their emotions all the time, even grief, of course, like you said.
absolutely. So then it's like, am I going crazy? Is there something wrong? And she encouraged me to go and see Carol just for my own healing. And so I did in America. And I just kept taking the next step because it's something that I felt so safe. I felt so held. I felt that I could be all of me. I didn't have to paint a smile on all the time. And I slowly learned to show that in group. I slowly learned that I could embrace feelings of anger. I could embrace feelings of sadness, of overwhelm, and that there was nothing wrong with that, and to integrate all these different parts of me. And then I never thought I would be here sharing with people what I've learned, but it's just taken me on this path, and I absolutely love it. And I wholeheartedly believe in it because it's been my journey and my story.
That's good. It's good to that, share your experience with grief because, like I said, so many people, this is a problem that they hide their emotions, and to let your emotions, go, you need to feel them and you need to sense all of that. You need to be in that state of awareness to get those emotions processed and let them go. So breathing is a
Absolutely.
really great tool to do that. And there's so many other, things, somatic, movement things that they help, but people don't know these. So that's what I do. These interviews with people like you who are amazing. They can shine a light on all these tools and amazing things that people can do. Now there's so much out there that people need to learn from not only, science, but the spiritual world and all these things. And it's so important. Breathing is so basic, but people don't know they're not doing it right. They think,
That's
no,
it.
I think I'm okay, but they don't know. They breathe through their mouth. They're sometimes, they do things like they don't know they're wrong and they can affect their body. So why is it so important, and the causes and effects of poor breathing? Yeah, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because we talk about holding your breath. And of course,
Yeah,
there's different types of holding. So when we talk about breath holding, we don't only mean when you actually hold your breath, which is a big tendency when in a state of overwhelm or shock or fear, we tend to hold our breath and kind of tense.
yeah, and shallow, like really shallow, like like a
Right.
dog.
Absolutely. And we go into, fight, flight kind of state.
Yes.
And this holding over time, because we've been doing that since, from the early years, can create a different type of holding, kind of tensions in the body, it gets stored in the body, in the cells. So it can create physical tensions, but it can also create kind of tensions in the emotions and in the thought patterns. And so because that memory of that experience is still held in the body, we didn't get to fully experience it and release it at the time, that creates kind of holding patterns of breathing in the long run. So I mean, William Reich talks about this a lot. He was a student of Freud's, and he kind of developed this theory on body armoring and character armoring. So our way that we create our defenses in the world, or the way that we respond to our atmosphere, our care system, the people around us, in order to be able to handle what's being kind of given to us, can then get transformed into the way we hold ourselves in our body. So we might tend to kind of slouch over, if you're feeling that you need to protect yourself, or we might have
tension gets stored.
Exactly. Yeah, you might have a lot of tension across the heart area, across the chest area, in order to protect your heart, and in this kind of work, we can see that, and that gives us clues to someone's experiences and what might have happened. And what that holding does is it restricts the breath. It restricts the organs from moving properly, therefore being able to complete their functions properly. And it can create symptoms and illnesses and disease if left untreated. So for example, you mentioned before this kind of shallow, rapid breathing.
Yes.
That's really common in people that breathe into their chest area, but their breath doesn't go down into the belly. Yeah. And that's really associated with kind of an anxious state. And doctors have done studies, there's studies out there where I think it was 98% of people who breathe into their chest were also heart attack patients. So over a long term, this can have effects because we're getting used to the way that our body has molded over time. But when we learn to take a full breath, we can start to soften those tensions and break down those patterns and create a healthier function.
I saw a video online that they're showing when you breathe properly, it actually something really powerful happens in the body. Like, there are all these organs, of course, that they get the, air, oxygen, but in the brain, it shows that it goes up in the brain. It kind of makes like a massage to the brain, and I thought that was a really cool video. When I started getting interested in breathing, and I was like, wow, because, like I said, I had all these breathing issues because I was going through so much anxiety and panic attacks, and I noticed that really affected my body, definitely. So not only my body, but my mind, so being in that state, that always being, like you said, sure of breath and trying to grasp air, and you're like, all the time you're in that emotion, you have that emotion stored and you need to let it process. So it was amazing. So that's when I started to look into, more breathing techniques. So what you said that it affects the body. So you said illness, different type of maybe inflammation. What other symptoms do you get, for example?
So you can have depression. It can create, if you're not breathing properly, because your body is compromised. So this can lead to kind of like a holding in of emotions and a holding in of expression, which when we don't get to express those things outwards, they tend to get turned in on ourselves, which can lead to this kind of helpless feeling. Also anxiety, which we mentioned before, sleep deprivation. So learning to breathe properly, you can really help with asthma, all of these kind of symptoms. And it can also help with cancer if you're breathing properly, because cancer doesn't really like oxygen so much
in our body. So
exactly. So when you're breathing this energy round, you're actually clearing out the toxins in your body.
Because when you breathe out, also you're releasing toxins and stuff from your body, right? So same as sweat, and other functions from our body, that they get released, like peeing, going to bathroom, but all these things that they get rid of those toxins.
Absolutely. And you might think that, we release the most toxins by going to the bathroom, but it's not actually true. 70% of the toxins that we release is through the breath. So I mean, if we're not taking a full breath, what's happening to those toxins? They're staying in our system, right? So when we're feeding our blood in that way by giving the oxygen, then that's traveling to every cell in the body. So it's really like creating fundamental change.
Yes, very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
now you said you went through a process of grief yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
would you also give maybe our viewers, maybe some of them are going through something like that, some tips on that area, maybe about grief that you can probably, tell us more about that, your
Mm-hmm.
experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I found that what I really needed at the time was to be able to talk about my experience with other people that had an understanding of what it was like to lose someone that was a loved one that was really close to them. And first of all, I couldn't find a group here in Barcelona that provided that space. So
Oh,
I feel sharing in community is really important and something that, we might want to isolate because it feels safer, but
yeah.
actually getting together with someone, even though they haven't had the exact same experience, that there's that knowing and that